Hello, everyone, and welcome on back. It's Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, a new week of tennis betting action. I'm still here in Umag. My handicapper, senior handicapper, Sean Calvert, is back in the UK. As you can see, I'm going to tell you about the adventures of that in a minute. So I'm still here. It was a big week last night, a big match, the final. Cerundolo won epic against Lorenzo Musetti, but that was yesterday. It's all about this week, and it's the start of the American hardcourt swing. And we start with the 500 event in Washington, which we're going to preview here. We've always got the Olympic show already. But before we do that, Sean, very good afternoon to you. A nice little journey back. 2-hour breeze back should be no problem for you. I'm glad to see you back. But what happened?
That didn't happen. That did not happen at all. Yeah, 5.5-hour delay on my flight because a bird flew into the windscreen of the incoming flight from Stansted, the one that I was on the week before, coming out from obviously Stansted to Pula. The same flight, obviously, when that flight lands, they just kick everybody out, turn it around and go back. But we were stood there waiting for that to happen. Nothing happened. We were just stood there. And I said to Natasha, this isn't right. They wouldn't just keep this on the ground for like half an hour without doing anything. Normally, you know what they're like, these Ryanair and EasyJet flights. They're in and out quick, aren't they? Every minute they spend on the ground is money to them. So when nothing happened, I thought this doesn't look good. And then you got the random text on the app saying, oh, by the way, there's a problem with your plane. We're not taking off now until I think they said 5:05. This was, bear in mind, I've been at the airport since 11:30. The flight was supposed to take off at 2 o'clock. And then they sent a text through saying, oh, it'll be 5 o'clock. Sorry. And everyone was like, oh, for God's sake. And then, because we'd already been through security, they didn't know what to do with us then. Because you've been to Pula Airport. It's tiny, isn't it? It's even smaller than Southend. It's really little. And they sort of kept us in there for a bit. And then they went, nah, you've all got to go back. So we all had to go back through security, through passport control the other way. But there's nothing there, is there, in Pula Airport? There's a couple of duty-free shops, a dodgy cafe, and that's it, isn't it? There's literally nothing else there. So then they sent another text saying, oh, no, it's not going to be 5, it's going to be 6. Because it turned out that because Ryanair don't have a base in Pula, they didn't have any technicians there. So they had to fly their technicians out on a Learjet from Stansted into Pula, and also a new crew, by the way, because they couldn't use the same crew because that delay would have meant the crew went well over their allotted hours, and they're not allowed to fly, are they? They've been working for X amount of time. So they had to send a technician and a new crew on a Learjet over to Pula, and then they had to fix it. They just said bird strike, which I think, from what I can gather, means a bird, or I'm guessing it was bigger than a sparrow. I'm guessing it was like a goose or something. At some point, smashed into something important. So that would have been so bad if it's on your own. You don't really mind if it's on your own, but when you've got your missus and your kid there, and a kid in Lagan who's bored after like 30 seconds of anything. 5.5 hours in a boring airport, and then of course you got to get back to Stansted. There was a massive queue there. Then I had to get involved with the car people because I was going to be delayed on the parking, so I had to text them and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late, and all this sort of stuff. It's a whole pain. I got back, I think it was about 10 o'clock last night, which was about 11 hours after I left the accommodation in Umag. So and then I've got up this morning and had a look at Washington D.C. So that's where we are, mate, at the minute. It's I don't like to moan about these things, but there you go. And of course, you can't get a refund, by the way, either. You can get a refund, but only if you don't take the flight. So I could have walked out of there and said, oh, I'm not having this, and I could have got a full refund. But because I took the flight, you don't get a penny. So there you go. That's where we're at.
That's been Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a fantastic show. Sean, does anything ever go smoothly for you, mate? Does anything ever go smoothly?
The rest of the week was all right. There was no problems with the outbound flight or anything like that. There's no problem with the taxi pickups. There was no real issues at the tennis or Mozzie's. That was a problem, but I mean that was only a minor issue. Everything else went all right, but
you were so happy. You were so happy on that patio. You were happy.
It feels like about 10 years ago now, that does, even though it was about 2 or 3 days ago. Yeah.
And this morning you took Lagan to basketball.
This morning I had to get up. You take Lagan to basketball, yeah, and then come back and look at these matches. It's not matches. It's like
okay.
It's like a practice session. He's getting pretty good at basketball, actually.
Yes. Well, at least there's some positive. The basketball session went well tonight. Listen, relax now. We're back. One thing, it's very, very hot today. I know I've said it every day, but today it's really, really hot. On my Instagram little post today, I put up, it was 34 degrees when I took so it's about 100, just over 100, isn't it?
In the direct sun, is that, or in the shade?
Yeah, just sitting on that little bit there. It was really hot. So anyway,
I might see the bus go past in a minute, the little train. That's going to go past the back of your head in a minute.
A little train will go past as we're doing these videos. It's a nice little backdrop. The grapes are coming out as well. It's very nice. I might not go home. I might stay here. I quite like it.
Well, anyway, you can't get back anyway because there's a problem probably.
Well, I won't take the flight.
You're not on Ryanair, are you?
No. EasyJet. We've got up in the world. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on from last week and concentrate this week. Obviously, there's only one ATP 500 event this week. It's in Washington. There's also the women's tournament going on at the same time. We've just done a podcast with Roy Giovanni looking at the women's draw, and that's the turn of the men's with Sean. There's the Olympics going on as well, Sean, and we've got lots of tennis action going on. There was a show on the Olympics with myself and Sean, which we recorded 24 hours ago. The weather out there has been awful, so that could potentially still be live. So we've got you covered here throughout the week. This is all about the tournament in Washington. To give us some trends in Washington, it's going to be hot. I mean, it's hot here, it's hot in the UK, it's hot in America as well. Give us a little trend of what to expect, the cork speeds, the conditions, and look at the previous winners. It's been dominated by big servers.
Yeah, but they changed it a couple of years ago from a quick Sportsmaster surface that they always used before, which was good. It was lively, it was quick, you kind of knew what you were getting, and as you said, quite a lot of big servers won it, but they changed it to a hard-court one in 2022, and it's a lot slower now. But I don't think that's the court itself. I think it's the fact that they're using now these Technifiber balls, which I've moaned about a lot of times on this show. They're awful. They're like dog balls. They're dreadful. They're so slow. They have them in Rotterdam as well. It just slows everything down. It makes it very, very hard to hit winners. The players, Taylor Fritz was saying last year, it was so slow. You couldn't believe how slow it was. Plus the humidity there makes the balls fluff up a little bit, makes it a little bit slower as well. So I don't think it's the surface, which is a hard-court one, which they don't use anywhere else really, apart from the clay one in Houston. I don't know any other tournament that uses an outdoor hard-court. But I think the issue is the balls and the humidity. So since it's been this new surface, it averages only 79% holds and 72% first serve points won. That's about 2 or 3% down on the average when it was a Sportmaster. So I've just looked at the trends and the stats from the last 2 editions because I don't think anything else is relevant because it was on a different surface. So averages 42% tie-break matches, and in the 2 editions, there's a slight trend to the overs. 54% of the matches in the last 2 editions have gone over 22.5 games. Underdog winners, it's kind of bang average, 34%. But the weather's all important here. I know it's been very, very hot in Washington, D.C. in recent weeks, like really hot. I think it's a touch cooler now, but it's still very, very hot and humid, around about the same sort of temperature that you're sitting in there. But with quite high humidity, quite a lot of thunderstorms, thunder showers expected. So it's hot, it's humid, it's slow. So those are the things that you got to bear in mind. If we look at the trends, Dan Evans last year became the only unseeded player to win this tournament since Radek Stepanek won it in 2011. So it normally goes to one of the seeded players. But looking at this draw, I think all bets are off as far as the trends are concerned, because this is a much weaker tournament than it usually is because everyone's at the Olympics. But I'll go through the trends anyway. Only 2 number 1 seeds have won this title in the last 10 editions. And 4 of the last 5 runners-up have been priced between 40 to 1 and 200 to 1. So a lot of big price losers in the final. Very, very good prices. Good for the each way, obviously, with Bet Rivers. Only 1 player from the qualifying draw has made the semis since David Wheaton. Remember him?
Oh, yes, I do. Always semi-finalist at Wimbledon.
He always had a bit of a serve volley game at Wimbledon, didn't he? Anyway, David Wheaton made the semi-finals here in 1997. Only 1 player from the qualifying draw has made the semis since, and that was Peter Gajowczyk as a lucky loser in 2019. So qualifiers don't normally go well. So that's the conditions: hot, humid, slower than it used to be. And yeah, there we are. That's that.
If you look at the previous winners, Dan Evans, as Sean said, they won it in 2023. A shock result there. Kyrgios in 2022, Yannick Sinner, 2021 Kyrgios again in 2019. Zverev in 2000, back-to-back in 2018 and 2017. And as Sean touched on there, the draw here hasn't got the caliber of those kind of players playing in the draw. Let's have a look at the draw, and this is the way it should go. Obviously, it's a 48-man draw. With 16 seeds guaranteed through to the second round, and the other 32 players playing for the right to play those seeds. And if it went to the seedings, which some of these things very rarely do, this is how the draw would pan out. In the top half of the draw, number 1 seed is Andrei Rublev. He will play Rinderknech. Kabesh Bainer will play Tiafoe. Korda will play Vucic. Petish Perigard will play Thompson. That's the top half. Bottom half, Davidovic Fokina against Koboli, Mickelson Vikachanov, Manarino Kekmanovic, and Nakashima against Shelton. Now, when I was writing that draw down, Sean, I was going, he can't win it. 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 And I did that to the 16 players. So hopefully you have a better idea of where we should be going than me, because this looks a minefield.
I don't have a better idea. I wish I did. I was kind of doing it the other way. I was doing exactly what you were doing, but I was going, he could win it. He could win it. So the exact opposite, but the same thing.
Same conclusion.
The same conclusion, but yeah, different way of looking at it. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this draw now. I've been looking at it for a while. I did have this draw at the airport yesterday. It was available to me. I didn't have any odds, but I had the draw. And 6 hours in the airport didn't really give me any more of an idea. Plus 2 hours on the plane. So 8 hours. I obviously wasn't looking at it the whole time, but it didn't really give me much of a clue. I'm going to take a punt on one, as you can imagine. I don't think there's any real advantage top half or bottom half. It just looks a mess, this draw, doesn't it? And you've got the number 1 seed Andrei Rublev. I mean, you saw more of him probably in UMAG than I did last week, but not in great form. I can imagine the heat and humidity here is going to send him nuts at some point. You know, his blood boils at the best of times anyway. In this sort of heat and humidity, if he's not playing well, I think there could be problems. Might need a medic on hand. Well, for several players actually in this heat, but certainly for him. And then you're looking at the next seed down is Rinderknech, who's just gone deep in Atlanta in insanely hot conditions. That also puts me off Nishioka, who's in there somewhere in that second quarter. He's a player that when he's playing well, and he obviously is at the minute, then he's one to follow. But he's got to the final in Atlanta. Another long match last night. He's still got the final to play. Difficult to see him doing it back-to-back weeks in these sort of hot conditions. Calvert Nigel, no, I can't see him winning a outdoor hardcourt tournament, even as slow as this one. He's played a ton of tennis lately as well. Then you're into Tiafoe, who continues to sort of confound. He played well at Wimbledon, then lost, I think, to Nishioka in Atlanta. Still very up and down. I'd like it quicker for him anyway than this. I think this is his home tournament, actually. He's from like the Baltimore area, isn't he, Tiafoe? I think this is his home tournament. He's never done particularly well here. Sebastian Korda, who I would think would want it quicker, and is always a fitness doubt. He's one that I would be worried about in extreme heat. And as I say, it's a bit too slow for him anyway. Vucic is the next one. He retired ill last week in Atlanta due to the heat. He's played a ton of tennis, and it's probably too slow for him as well. Then you're into Petish Perigard, who you would think would want it very quick, or certainly quicker than this, but he's a possibility. He's obviously won a tournament in Lyon on the clay, so he can play on slower surfaces as well. He's perhaps one of interest there. And then Jordan Thompson, who's still got to play the Atlanta final. So he's going to be shattered, you would think, as well. So that's the top half. Does that make it any clearer?
No,
I don't think it did. I didn't think it did.
And the bottom half is even more confusing. There goes the train. There goes the train. There we go. There goes the train. There we go. They see the train there. There we go.
I can see it in the background. Yeah, it's actually cheaper to get a cab, isn't it?
100%.
It's actually cheaper. For myself, Lagan and Natasha, it was 10 euros. It's €4 per adult, isn't it? And €2 if you're under 10.
Yeah.
Which Lagan was. Even if he wasn't, I would have said he was anyway. Save €2. So.
So €2 is €2.
It certainly is. Half an ice cream, that is. So, Yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, the train. Anyway, let's not let's not worry about the train. But a cab, as you say, is only about €10, anyway, isn't it?
Yep, yep.
And then you get door
Yeah,
to
well,
door rather than having
and
to
then
walk.
and it all air conditioned, perfect. So the bottom half of the draw,
Anyway,
though, Sean,
bottom
is
half, yeah.
it's even more confusing than the top half.
Yeah, so you've got Davidovich for Keener, who I sort of did toy with for a while, but he just doesn't have the consistency match to match to. You just know he's going to throw in a bad one at some point, or you feel like he is, which is why he's never really. He's not won a tournament yet at ATP tour level. Got to the final of Monte Carlo Masters one year, I think, didn't he?
Yep.
Beat Djokovic and got to that final, I think, off the top of my head. But
yep.
very, very inconsistent. Then you got Caboli, who's played a load of tennis on clay. You wouldn't really expect him to win an ATP 500 on hard at the minute. Mickelson, who's someone that I would prefer, in quicker conditions again. Kashanov is certainly a possibility, but when does he ever win a tournament? About once every 5 or 6 years. I think he's only won one since he won that Paris one back in 2018, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
He won Zhuihai, didn't he, last year? That's the only tournament that I can remember him winning in the last sort of 6 or 7 years. So he's not someone to regularly want to put your money on. Then you're into Manarino, who's absolutely shocking form, and even if he was in good form, you wouldn't have fancied him in these conditions. Kekmanovic is possible. Shapovalov, yeah, maybe if they have good weeks, but those two are not what you would call reliable, are they? You wouldn't be surprised if either of them either lost in the first round or made the final. Who knows? So the one I'm taking is Nakashima. This is a very long build-up for this, but I'm taking.
Well, let's give the odds on that before we come into Nakashima. Let's give you the odds on the market. Rublev is and Bet Rivers are of the same conclusion as us. Really, they can't really find a clear favourite. Rublev is plus $6.50. Shelton is $9. He's in that bottom half. Tiafoe is $9. Korda 10. There's that trio of American players. Kachanov is 11, Shapovalov 16, Zhang is 16, Davidovich Rakina 18, and Pesci Perregard is 18. Nakashima is 22, so we're going to come on for that in a minute. Mickelson 25, Thompson 25, and Opelka, who is on the comeback trail, is 28-1. So they are the prices with Bet Rivers. Head across to the website now, you'll be able to check out all those odds. But Sean's pick is down that list, about the 10th in the betting is Nakashima, who is in the bottom half of the draw. He's Seeley 13. He's due to play Ben Shelton in the last 16, but Ben Shelton is not a tough challenge at the moment. So give us the argument for Nakashima here then, Sean.
It's not the strongest of arguments, to be completely honest. I think it's the best of what I can do with the draw that we've got and the odds that we've got. There are some reasons to fancy him. I think he's going to handle the heat, which is a big factor here for me. He made the final in Atlanta, not this time, but previous occasion. Also made the final in Los Cabos, where it's very, very hot as well. And in San Diego, won the title in San Diego, where it was a slow hard court, very slow hard court, pretty warm conditions, not that hot, but he ticks the boxes for being able to handle the heat. He ticks the box for being able to get to a final on a slow hard court. Los Cabos is slow. San Diego is slow. So he ticks those two boxes. He should also be highly motivated playing at home. Obviously, an American player. No American has won this since Andy Roddick in 2007. So the Americans have been waiting, well, it'll be 17 years this year without seeing one of their home players win the tournament. Isner made the final a couple of times. I think Mackenzie McDonald made the final here at a very big price when it was quicker a few years ago. Lost to Sinner in the final, 150-1, I think he was, Mackenzie McDonald that year. So they're certainly due one, the Americans. The draw for Nakashima, obviously you've mentioned the fact that he'll probably have to beat Shelton, but he's not exactly in great form, is he, Shelton? And I wouldn't have thought this slow, humid conditions would be ideal for him at all. And Nakashima is a more proven performer, excuse me, in these sort of conditions. So it's a tentative pick. I don't think anybody could look at this draw and be confident about an outright this week. Everyone will have theories. This is my theory. At 22-1 each way, Brandon Nakashima. I think that's the best I can do.
Yeah, well, I thought you might have gone for someone who'd unseed like a really big 100-1 shot, or given the record of the underdogs there, I thought you might find someone completely random and just throwing him in the mix.
I might still. We've got a couple of shows to do. Yeah, haven't we this week? I think once this first round's out of the way, I might have a sort of clearer picture. But it's a really, really, this is one of the toughest draws of the season. I think if you're getting an outright winner here that isn't the favourite or the second favourite, I think you're doing very well.
Yeah, it's a draw that throws up more questions than answers for sure. A lot of these players are sort of in terrible form of the season. A lot of them have concerns about their form, a lot of concerns about their fitness, coming through tough matches in Atlanta as well. So lots of questions to be answered at the City Open in Washington. And hopefully we have the answers to those questions over the next couple of days. As Sean said there, we'll be back on Tuesday and Wednesday previewing these matches, as well as matches at the Olympic Games as well. You have looked at 3 matches for us in the first round. And let's start off with the first match. It's Ruusuvuori up against Borna Coric. Ruusuvuori is minus 157 currently with Bet Rivers, plus 125 for Coric. The spread is 1.5. Ruusuvuori is minus 125, giving up the 1.5. Coric receiving 1.5 start is minus 103. Total is 22.5 with over minus 121, under minus 106. They've met once before in 2021 in Melbourne. Coric won that match 7-5, 6-4, which would have reduced 22 games, which would mean the unders would have cashed on the totals. A difficult match to start with in this one. What's your thinking here?
I think they're all difficult.
Yeah.
They're all extremely difficult. I think you might have to be a little bit careful with your stakes this week, because I think we're going to get some peculiar results because of the heat and humidity. That I think is going to lead to a few problems for a few players. And these are 2 players that aren't particularly keen on this sort of heat. Ruusuvuori has struggled a lot in the heat in the past, as you could probably imagine, coming from Finland. He's not a great one in the heat. He's always got a retirement in him. And Coric had a lot of issues last week in the heat of Atlanta as well, where he lost to Mayot and he was having his vital signs checked. So 2 guys that will be hoping for either a very late match or a very early one where they're out of the heat. But I think this price is a little bit too short on Ruusuvuori, definitely. Last 50 main level matches on outdoor hard, I've compared the 2 of them. Their stats are exactly the same. Their service points won and return points won totals both 101, and their service hold and break totals both 100. So if you're doing it on the bare stats on this surface, it's an absolute pick'em. Move on to the head-to-head, which was on an outdoor hardcourt, reasonably paced outdoor hardcourt in Melbourne 2021. Coric won it, but the service points, he won it in straight sets, and it was pretty dominant. Service points won and return points won total 110-90 in favour of Borna Coric. So a commanding win, really. So the matchup, I know it's only one match. It certainly hasn't favoured Ruusuvuori, or it didn't on that particular occasion. Coric has also been out here in the States, this part of the world, longer to acclimatise to this extreme heat. Obviously, he prepared for Atlanta. Then he played that match, which he disappointingly lost to Mayot and struggling in the heat. Ruusuvuori's not played since Wimbledon, so he's a little bit out of touch as well. Both of these players have really, really struggled with injuries this year. Ruusuvuori's just not been able to get going after an injury earlier on in the season. Coric is seemingly always injured. So these are the best 3 matches I could find. So that's where we're at. It's a tough one, but I think there's value on Coric, plus 125. He is. I think this should be at worst a pick'em. There's an argument for saying Coric should be slight favourite. So I think that there isn't that much value around, but I think Coric is worth a bet. Plus 125, I think, is as I say, a bit of value on him here.
Borna Coric, our first pick, the Serbian, is plus 125 to beat Ruusuvuori. The Finn in extreme weather, hot conditions, always a good strategy to oppose the Finnish players in the heat. I think that's probably not a bad assumption to even start with. Plus 125 Coric is a decent bet there. The next match sees Reilly Opelka, who's on the comeback trail. He got reached the semi-finals in Newport. We bet him, didn't we? And one of his matches at 2-1. It was
against Mannarino,
huge subject to a huge gamble on that occasion. A lot of people liked him there. He got to the last 16 in Atlanta, and he's up against the veteran James Duckworth, who's always someone that I think is a dangerous opponent, especially in these kind of events. Opelka is a very, very heavy favourite here, minus 225, which for a man who's had a lengthy layoff is a very, very short price. James Duckworth hasn't played since Wimbledon. He's plus 175. The spread is 2.5. Opelka minus 2.5 is minus 110. Duckworth receiving 2.5. He's the favourite at minus 125. And the totals, as you would expect with the Opelka matches, is high. It's 23.5 with over minus 125 and under minus 110. They met once before in a challenger event in 2018, a long time ago, 6 years ago now. But Duckworth did win that 7-6, 6-3. And Opelka, he seems to be a player that is just getting bet because everyone thinks, it's Reilly Opelka. He's going to come back to his form. He's a big server. It's a hard court. He's a giant of a man, and he's going to blow people away. I think minus 225 is a very, very low price for him.
Very short. I don't like the really big guys like Isner and obviously Opelka, Raonic in this sort of heat and humidity. I always feel like it takes more out of them. It just feels like they have to, the movement and stuff, the movement becomes very labored. And the fact that it's not quick here, he can't just get away with his serve. I don't think he probably can to a degree, obviously, but it's that slow. I imagine with Reilly Opelka still being quite a big name, I imagine he'll probably be on a show court possibly at night, which will make it even slower, more humid. Not good conditions for him. I just like the odds on Duckworth here. Plus 190 I saw about Duckworth. It's a good price. It really is. I mean, as you said, he beat Opelka as a plus 117 underdog. So he was only 2.17 in decimal that day. Now he's 2.9 plus 190 in that career meeting. Yes, it was a few years ago, but he didn't even face a break point that day, Duckworth. And now he's plus 190 against the same player several years later. And a player that's just had 2 years out, not a few months, 2 years out with injury, and has come back. And he said he said about Newport, he said his body was absolutely wrecked by the time he got to the semi-finals. Played a couple of matches in Atlanta, beat Kovacevic, lost to Davidovich Fokina. You've got to wonder how his body is reacting after several matches, 6 or 7 matches, 5 or 6 matches, having not done anything really for 2 years. Duckworth's got a decent record against big servers. He's beaten Ben Shelton a couple of times, beat Kyrgios, Querrey, obviously beating Opelka as well. And he's 4-2 win-loss in tiebreaks in matches against the big servers in my database. So he's held his nerve well against the big servers in tiebreaks. And you feel like tiebreaks are probably inevitable here as well. Again, this is another match where we're talking about fitness. Opelka, we've just said he's had 2 years off, can't be at his best fitness. Duckworth pulled out of Newport and Atlanta with a back problem. Now he's back. Is he fit enough? Maybe this is what this price is about. I don't know. I don't think the heat's going to bother him, though. He's played a lot of very tough matches in Australia in very high heat. I don't think he's going to have an issue with it. I would be more worried about Opelka in this sort of heat and humidity. As I said, the big guys, I'm not keen on them. So Duckworth for me, plus 190. If you can get somewhere around that, I think that's decent.
Yeah, the current price of Bet Rivers is plus 175, unless it's
Still
changed.
Decent, yeah.
It's with a plus 175. He hasn't played since Wimbledon, James Duckworth. That's retired, pulled out for a couple of tournaments, as Sean said, they were a back problem. But he's been playing a lot of hardcourt tennis this season. His record at this kind of level has been pretty good. And obviously, Opelka been out for 2 years. He is a public player, I think, Reilly Opelka. I think a lot of people like him, like his style. I think he's just something to lead immediately come back and show the form he did 3 or 4 years ago, which I don't think it's the case. So Duckworth here, plus 175. I also like the spread, plus 2.5, because Opelka will win sets 7-6, and you could 7-6, 7-6. You're still going to cash on the 2.5. So head across the betting website.
Odds on that. That's the only reason I couldn't see any odds. A lot of these matches haven't been priced up yet, have they? Or they're just being priced up now, and they're kind of trickling through. But I hadn't seen the prices on the handicap. Yeah,
minus 125 it is. It's 2.5 start for James Duckworth. But head across to the BetWithers website. There'll be a load of markets being added throughout these days. I mean, this is a normal time for the American viewers watching this. You'll be able to have a nice lie in and watch it with all the action being across in Europe. Have an early start. You'll be able to watch it at a reasonable hour. And remember, if you do place a bet with Bet Rivers, you can bet live and watch live at Bet Rivers. This matches will be streamed on the Bet Rivers app if you do place a wager on the match. Let's move on to our final match. It's Mayot, minus 137 against O'Connell, plus 110. 2 players in real terrible form at the moment. Mayot on the spread is 2.5. Mayot giving up the 2.5 is plus 110. O'Connell receiving 2.5 is a heavy favourite, minus 150. Total 22.5, over minus 125, under minus 110. O'Connell was lost in the first round in his last 6 tournaments, and he hasn't won in the main draw since Miami back in March. But Mayot saying that isn't in great form himself. O'Connell, if you're looking for an underdog price, I'm sure you're looking favourably towards O'Connell here, but his form is really questionable, isn't it?
It is, but he's not been fit for a while. I think with this one, if O'Connell is fit, then he's a very decent price as underdog against Mayot, who's kind of plays most of his tennis at challenger level, the odd foray into the main draw, main level. Doesn't tend to do particularly well at this level. I think he is sort of decent challenger level. That's about it, really. O'Connell, another Australian that's had injury problems, like Duckworth, but for a longer period of time. He's only played 2 matches since retiring at Rome. I'll tell you what he said about the Olympics, because he had qualified for the Olympics. He said, "I was so excited to qualify for the Olympics, and I'm disappointed that my body is just not where it needs to be to compete on the clay." So I'm reading into that the fact that he feels like he can't handle the really long rallies on the clay, but he's more than happy to try his luck on the hard courts. He withdrew from the Olympics, played at Atlanta last week, where he was a set up and 5-all in the second set against Purcell. Then, having dropped that second set 7-5, he went away a bit tamely in set 3, which suggests he's just getting back to that match fitness. But he's another one. The Heat, I don't think is going to worry him that much. Obviously, he's played a ton of matches in Australia. I just can't have Mayot as favourite at this level against a more than capable opponent, a better player, you would certainly argue. I mean, Mayot is 2-7 win-loss in his last 9 matches at main level. One of those 2 wins was against a Borna Coric, who was struggling in the heat last week in Atlanta. And that was after Mayot had lost to Billy Harris in qualies and got back in as a lucky loser. So if we look at the all-time stats at main level, O'Connell, a couple of points better. Service points won over 10 points, won total of 98. Mayot 96, which tells you pretty much the level that Mayot is. The other thing is Mayot's only won 3 out of the 9 main level matches he's played outside of France. He tends to do his best stuff in places like Montpellier, Metz, these kind of places. So, I mean, he's a doubtful stare in the heat as well. Although he did better than Borna Coric last week in those sort of hot conditions. But I feel like if you are having a bet on this one, this is a punt, and I think it's got some value, because I think O'Connell probably needs to win this in straight sets. And he is the better player. If he's fit, I think he's got a reasonable chance of winning it in straight sets. And that's a plus 240 chance with Bet Rivers, plus 240, the odds I saw. So betting in this, O'Connell's a better player. Feel like he's got to win it in 2 because of the stage he's at in his recovery. So I'd take the 2-0 if I was betting in that. Take a chance.
Take a chance. Why not? Plus 110 on the money line, plus 240 to win 2-0. Sound reasoning to go for the bigger price on the prop there of the 2-0 set win. So there's 3 bets. There is an outright pick there. And what is actually going to go down on the official records, Sean? And the official records are looking quite good. I think we're about 6-point-something units up in the season so far. Rory's overtaking you with 12 units of profit after his win last week on the money line with on the tournament in Prague with Magdalene. So about 19 points combined. Good start.
Yeah, I mean, for as far as official plays are concerned, taking Duckworth, I think you said plus 175, didn't you?
That's unfortunately that's got to be the price. It's got to be logged plus 175.
Still bigger than I would have expected it to be, really. That's to beat that's Duckworth to beat Reilly, Opelka, and Borna Coric plus 125 underdog to beat Ruusuvuori, and the outright, which is it's the best guess I can come up with. I think there are some pretty sound reasons for it. But Nakashima 25-1 each way, 22-1 I think he is, isn't he actually? Yeah, he's the outright for me. It's in what is an extremely difficult draw.
Very, very difficult. One of the most toughest draws to break down of the season so far. My thoughts exactly when I looked at it this morning when I broke it down. I think Sean spent 8 hours at an airport trying to do it, and we couldn't do it. But the best
things.
Yeah, well, there wasn't much to do. Other than that, so Nakashima is 22-1 is our pick. There's our 2 picks on the matches tomorrow. Coric at plus 125, Duckworth at plus 175. Head across to the BetWiz website. You'll see the order of play. You'll see loads of props. You'll see loads of specials, more than any other sports book across America with those odds on the tennis offering that we're offering you there. Myself and Sean will be back on Tuesday. I'm flying back to London tomorrow. Hopefully no delays. Hopefully no birds flying into the windscreen. No, hopefully none of that. Hopefully straight in, straight out, and get back to London. Myself and Sean will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday looking at the matches here in Washington and at the Olympics. And I'm sure probably adding to our portfolio on the outright wins with probably 101 shot that could go all the way here. If you want to follow all our content, you can on our social media page at Because We Win on Twitter and on Instagram. Please subscribe if you haven't done so yet to our YouTube channel, Betting Weekly Studios. It's tennis all the way now on the countdown to the US Open starts, which is a month away before we'll be flying out to New York for the US Open. And we'll have all the breakdown of all the tournaments now, some big 1,000 events coming up here. Keep the comments coming, lots of comments. Keep them positive. Any bets you like, any interest, anything you want to share with us, any questions, happy to answer them on the comments box below. And please, obviously, like and keep ringing that bell. Be notified of every time any of the content drops. And finally, if you want to download the podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, you can do so on your preferred podcast provider. Sean, nice to see you back. I know it was a long day yesterday. I appreciate your time. A very long day. I appreciate your time today. Go and get some rest. You don't have to sit on a five-a-side court and watch Lagan play today. Put your feet up. You can have a nice cold one and have a nice bit of lunch and get yourself fresh for the next couple of days. Enjoy your day off tomorrow. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back again on Tuesday, breaking down the tournament here in Washington and all the Olympic action in Paris. Take care. Enjoy your day. Thanks for watching.